Today's cabbage class is the Entwicklung series, a series of tanks. Let's get into it. Now, Nazi Germany and Hitler are always interested in Wunderwaffe, which is wonder weapons. Let's have a little look at a few. Now, some of these were made, like the elephant, that was made. Then we have a Flak Panzer, so some of these were made. Then we have the Zeppelin rammer, which was designed to ram planes. And then last, the sun gun, where they shine sun on various places of the earth. Now, you may think, what the hell am I going on about? I'm really confused, like Cedric here. Well, find yourself a little tree, and we'll get into the E-series, which was kind of a wonder weapon of sorts. Let's get into them. So during World War II, the Nazi Party and Hitler and all his cronies came up with various wonderful different tanks, from the complex to the simple and everything in between. Now, there was quite a lot of different tanks and vehicles using kind of assortment of chassis and things like that. So the idea of the E-series was to standardise tanks into a certain number of series and weights. So they kind of went from 5 to 10 tons, 10 to 25, up in those increments, and that's where the E numbers would come from. But we'll have a little look at that in a minute. Now, the main reason was resources. Resources were getting very few and far between for the Nazi war machine, and the tanks they currently had used a lot of resources. So the idea was to standardise the chassis, etc., and use less resources making these tanks, which was a great idea, but unfortunately it was too little too late for the Nazi Party, and it was towards the end of the war. So, all in all, a great idea, but poorly executed and timed. So let's get into the E-series. Hold on to your hats. So the series had E5, E10, E25, 50, 75 and 100. First up was E5. So this was the 5 to 10 ton class. And this was the kind of light reconnaissance vehicles, personnel carriers, light tanks, all that kind of stuff, all in one nice little group, all on the same chassis. Keep it nice and simple, job done. So the E10 series was 10 to 25 tons, and this was to replace the Jagdpanzer 38, or more commonly known as the Hetzer. By the German soldiers called it that. It wasn't the official name, but it's more commonly known as the Hetzer. And this is a light tank destroyer, and the manufacturer was, interestingly, one of them was Skoda, Czechoslovakian company. So the E25 was designed to replace the Panzer III and Panzer IV, and it had the involvement of quite a few companies. You had Alket, Argos, Alda and the Porsche firms, and this was kind of a medium sized tank. So yep, goodbye Panzer III and Panzer IV for the E25. The E50 Standard Panzer was going to be a replacement of the Panther and the Tiger 1. So this was probably, you could say, a large tank, yeah. And it was going to be a similar size, but it's going to have a longer hull to it than the Panther and the Tiger. So they were going to get rid of those two and be with an E50. E75 was going to be replacing the Jagd Tiger and the Tiger 2. Now you wonder where they're getting the E's numbers from. Basically, this would have been a 75 to 100 ton. So if you E50, 50 to 75, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, that's how it worked. Last but not least was the E100, which was meant to replace the Tiger Mouse. This was going to be the super heavy combat tanks. Now, there was a prototype of the E100 started in 1944, but this was abandoned after Hitler ended the development of the Mouse. And after the war, the engines were actually used in the AMX series for France. So this did have a legacy after the war. So it's quite an interesting little series. I thought I'd give you a very brief history on this. Something completely different from me. And I will be doing a few more of these. Hey, it might be factually correct, you never know. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.